It's a little thick, your packet is, but it's okay. It's basically all scripture. There's no hardly notes at all on the first chapter. So we're going to start with 29. And since it's kind of lengthy reading, I'll just read all of it. See how mundane I can read it. And in the 7th month, on the first day of the month, okay, this is continuing from 28. They were talking about the sacrificial, they were reviewing it. There was some additional things that they said. This is, again, continuing that. They have the different offerings that they apply at the different feasts, and that's what this is, okay? The first one's Feast of Trumpets. In the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work. For you it is a day of blowing the trumpets. You shall offer a burnt offering as sweet aroma to the Lord. 1 young bull, 1 ram, 7 lambs in the first year without blemish. Their grain offering shall be fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for the bull, 2/10 for the ram, and 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs. Also 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering to make atonement for you. Besides the burnt offering with its grain offering for the new moon, the regular burnt offering with its grain offering and their drink offerings according to their ordinance as a sweet aroma, an offering made by fire to the Lord. So when they come on the Feast of Trumpets, they have this special set that they offer, okay? That's in addition to the daily. They offer daily, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. At the first of the month, they offer another sacrifice, okay?
This all takes place at the temple, right? I mean, it's the priest that do, not everybody does.
It did this, yes. This was actually at the tabernacle, so the same difference, but it was at the tabernacle. Yeah, this is what they were supposed to do. They hadn't done any of this in the 38. Well, they did it one time when the first year after the Passover, he had them remember the Passover, told them how to do it, all this stuff. But after that, they didn't do it. They said, when you enter, get ready to enter into the land of Canaan. That's now. They're getting ready to go over there. So now he's just reaffirming. All the people that had been there that they told before are gone. So now they're re-emphasizing this. They talked last week about the normal sacrifices. Now this is the additional sacrifices during their times when they have special occurrences.
This is the ones under 40 years old.
These were under 40. All the older ones had died. Now these guys may be close to 80 now because they may have been 39 and they didn't die, and now it's almost 40 years later.
Wow.
So there's nobody besides Moses going to be older. Caleb and Jace, and we don't know how old they were, Caleb and Jacob, but nobody else. Well, Aaron died. He was older, but he died. So there's only a few people. There's 4 or 5 people that's going to be older than 40 now, going to be older than 80. Okay? Because Moses at this time is close to 120. Okay?
I'm just trying to get the generational type of thing.
So next one is the Day of Atonement. That's another feast that they have, okay? On the 10th day of this 7th month, okay? We're talking about the 7th month. The 7th month is their new year, okay, when they started. So the 10th day of this 7th month, you shall have another holy convocation. It doesn't say another, but have a holy convocation, another special, day. You shall afflict your souls. You shall do not any work. Afflict their souls means they've got to. It wasn't a happy day. Okay, they're trying to atone for their sins. So they try to do something that. It's kind of like at the Passover, they eat the onions and the garlic and stuff. It's sour, it's things, but they had to eat it to get strength to go and leave. Well, this is the same similar thing here. They are afflicting themselves. They're putting themselves in a position to try to atone. Some of them did have, where they fasted. Some of them did. They did think it was a fast. May have been not a fast from food, but it may have been a fast from something like work. They didn't work any. He told them not to work, okay? So it says, you shall present a burnt offering to the Lord as a sweet aroma, 1 young bull, 1 ram, 7 lambs in their first year. Be sure they are without blemish. Their grain offering shall be fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for the bull, 2/10 for one of the rams, 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs, also 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering, besides the sin offering for atonement. The regular burnt offering with its grain offering and their drink offering. So, anytime it's talking about these offerings, it still wants you to not forget this daily offerings. That's for us, not to forget our daily prayers. Okay? They had daily sacrifices in the morning and the evening. That's a representation for us. We should have that also. Okay, we should have our prayers in the morning, prayers in the evening. Now the Feast of Tabernacles. On the 15th day, okay, they have a lot of festivals in this 7th month. So on the 15th day, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall not do any customary work, and you shall keep a feast to the Lord for 7 days. So this feast is for 7 days, okay? And we talked about that earlier in the book. You shall present a burnt offering, an offering made with fire as a sweet aroma to the Lord. 13 young bulls, 2 rams, 14 lambs in their first year. They shall be without blemish. Their grain offering shall be fine flour mixed with the oil, 3/10 of an ephah for each of the 13 bulls, 2/10 for each of the 2 rams, 1/10 for each of the 14 lambs, also 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. On the 2nd day of the feast, present 12 young bulls, 2 rams, 14 lambs in the first year without blemish. Their grain offering and their drink offerings for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs by their number, according to the ordinance. Also 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering with its grain offerings and their drink offerings. Okay. On the 3rd day, present 11 bulls. Each day it's getting 1 bull less. All the rest are staying the same. 11 bulls, 2 rams, 14 lambs in their first year without blemish. Their grain offerings, their drink offerings for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs, by their number according to the ordinance. Also 1 goat as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. On the 4th day, present 10 bulls, 2 rams, 14 lambs in their first year without blemish, and their grain offering and their drink offerings for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs, by their number according to the ordinance. Also 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. On the 5th day, present 9 bulls, 2 rams, 14 lambs in their first year without blemish, and their grain offering and their drink offering for the bulls, for the rams, for the lambs, by their number according to the ordinance. Also 1 goat as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. On the 6th day, present 8 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 lambs in their first year without blemish, and their grain offerings and their drink offerings for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs, by their number according to the ordinance. Also 1 goat as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. On the 7th day, present 7 bulls, 2 rams, 14 lambs in their first year without blemish, and their grain offering and their drink offering for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs by their number according to the ordinance. Also 1 goat as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. Okay, it said for 7 days. On the 8th day, you shall have a sacred assembly. You shall do no customary work. So they're all together at the end of the Feast of the Tabernacles. Remember what the Feast of Tabernacles is? It's booths. They set up little tents, temporary places where they stay for that week out there to remember they're traveling from across the desert in Egypt. That's what all this is for. On the 8th day, you shall have a sacred assembly. Everybody comes together. You shall do no customary work. You shall present a burnt offering, an offering made by fire as a sweet aroma to the Lord. 1 bull, 1 ram, 7 lambs in their first year without blemish, and their grain offering, and their drink offerings for the bull, for the ram, and for the lambs, by their number according to the ordinance. Also 1 goat as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. These you shall present to the Lord at your appointed feasts, besides your vowed offerings and your freewill offerings, as your burnt offerings and your grain offerings, as your drink offerings, and your peace offerings. So that's kind of, each one of them has their different things, what they say, but that's in addition to what the individual person does. Okay? For this, it's kind of like us. We take our missionary offering, we take our general expense offering, we take our youth offering, we take, that's kind of the way we look at it.
But we don't do it all at one time.
No, but last week we did. We had
do this all at one time.
Yeah, but we did, that was over a month. Okay, that was over a week, that offering. But we do that too. I mean, October we had pastor appreciation, had the world missionary, we still have the general expense, we still have the youth, we still have the missionary.
No, we don't got to remember it all at one time.
No, but that's what I do, and me and him do up there. We try to remind you.
You two get to do that.
We try to remind you guys what's going on. So this was presented, and that's not being a sacrifice like then, but it's just similar to what it does.
Wow.
So these are the appointed feasts. God required so many animals and such expensive sacrifice because the Feast of Tabernacles was a happy memorial of God's faithfulness to Israel during the Exodus. Okay, the previous one, the atonement, was more of a sacred thing, but the Feast of Tabernacles is more of a joyful time. So just 5 days after that, they had their first offering, the first, and then the 10th, and then the 15th. When they started that 15th, then they're getting happy again. I mean, they're glad for the week.
When I wake up, after I do my Bible, I'd have to look in my pocket and read the list if I was those people, see what I had to do before I did anything else.
Yeah.
What kind of sacrifice would I have to make that day?
Well, these sacrifices are for the whole tribes, all of them. It said, besides the vowed offerings, if you vowed an offering, if you give an offering, free will offerings. Okay, people at that time, they would sacrifice or give an offering as a vow or as a promise. Okay, and then their free will offerings, well, that's just like ours. If they gave offerings to the Levites or the priests or whoever they gave it to. So, the sacrifice of so many animals was a demonstration of the richness of God's provision through the year wandering in the wilderness. The last 29, so Moses told the children of Israel everything, and then you go on to the next part, just as the Lord commanded Moses. So, Moses is getting ready to die. He's already told them he's getting ready to, in the next chapter, he's going to get, I think it's the next chapter, that he, it's a chapter after that, we'll get it in just a minute. But
He already knew.
yeah, he told him that he wasn't going to get to see the promised land, and he told him to get ready. So that's what he's doing now. He's reviewing all these things, because he's not going to be around. God gave these directly to him, and he's reviewing them, making sure all the priests, the Levites, Aaron's sons, remember.
He's reaffirming all the sacrifices before he died.
Sure. Said all this sacrifice did not include the sacrifices made by individuals or households. Okay? Interesting fact, in the days of Jesus, there's a record 255,600 Passover lambs being sacrificed at one Passover, just by individuals and households, not including what you just talked about. That's a lot. And it's still not enough, is it? Because they had to do it again and again and again every year. But with Jesus, our sacrifice, we don't have to worry about that.
Thank you, Jesus.
Every time I see all that was required of them to know the blessings of God, like all these animals they did represented the goodness of God.
Somebody shooting.
They're over there. And Jesus came and just one sacrifice.
That's right.
And just one person.
Okay.
No, they shoot.
No, that's somebody shooting over
on
there.
the creek
Oh.
over there. They go.
On the creek go by Linda's old house. Well, I'm just glad Brother Everson doesn't have to teach this to us.
Yeah. Still part of it, still part of the Bible. You need to remember
but
what had happened.
He doesn't have to drill it into our heads, so we have to do it all the time.
That's right. Okay, chapter 30. I left off the T at the very first. Then Moses spoke to the heads of the tribes concerning the children of Israel, saying, "This is the thing which the Lord has commanded." Okay, he's getting ready to tell them about vows. He talked to the heads of the tribes to let them know special circumstances about when a person vows a vow. Okay, Brother Everson, number 2.
If a man makes a vow to the Lord or swears an oath to bind himself by some agreement, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth.
Okay? That's a promise. You make a promise, you make a handshake, whatever you want to talk about, but you're making a promise before God. And said a vow before God is no small thing. God expressly commanded that Israel should be careful to keep its vows and to fulfill every oath made. That's why it tells us, Jesus tells us to speak only yea, yea, and nay, nay. Don't be entering into oaths. It's one of those things that if you never even think about doing it, don't do it. Then you'll be okay. But if you do it, then you're stuck. You're stuck with what you said. It's kind of like today. If you go take a loan out on a $60,000 house, or you can't buy that anymore, $60,000 car, you have to pay $600 a month for 8 years, 9 years. That's crazy. But people do. And if they don't, the bank people come back and either take the car or they take you to jail or something. So that's what it is today. It says in many circles today, the breaking of an oath is just standard business practice. And that's right. That's what rules are meant to be broke. Well, no, not with God. Some people say that today that both vows or oaths are not permitted for a Christian. They think that because Jesus said, and this is what I said, don't swear by your head or by your hand, whatsoever what's more than these is from the evil one. He thinks, it says, but in context with the rest of the scripture, we see that Jesus was not forbidding oaths as much as telling us that we should be so filled with integrity of our words that oath is unnecessary. So many times people, when you have to tell somebody not to do something, kind of like in today's society, it's like, duh. Don't shoot somebody, don't kill somebody. It's just like, no, you wouldn't do that. But some people, they don't care. So it doesn't matter to them. They didn't know. That's just not right. And
just drive-by shootings for no reason.
Well, sure, they have no value of life. They have no value of that. So Jesus was, trying to influence us. If you stand firm in your word and what you do, or don't go back on your word, you don't have to worry about doing it. Used to be when you'd shake hands with somebody, that was good. Yeah. You agreed to something and you shook hands on it. You didn't want to break that because you lost promise. And if you broke that, then that guy can go say, hey, I wouldn't do anything with him. But today they don't even think about that. They just like, okay, if I can con you out of something, that's more to me and less to you.
I remember one time I went to court. I didn't go to court. I was working with Brother Randy, and some stuff got stole off our job.
Uh-huh.
And we went to court. And I'll never forget that the court clerk, or not the court clerk, but the deputy or whatever, gets up, holds the Bible up, and he swears to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I said, I affirm. And I thought when I said that, I affirmed. And I was thinking, if a man is a man of integrity or a woman of integrity. That should be enough.
It should be. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, you're yay, be yay. If you're gonna lie,
Yeah.
you're gonna lie where you swear or you don't swear.
That's right. That's right.
And like you said, I think sometimes we let your yes be yes and your no be no. The older I get, the shorter my memory gets, and sometimes I'm not careful. Well, I'll be and the next thing I know, time's gone, and I'm thinking I don't want to be a person that don't do. You know, I want my word to count for something.
Right. Right. And it's good. It's sometimes things come up and we can't, you can always start earlier if you're supposed to meet somebody and all this stuff. But like the other day, I got a little late. Well, it's because of traffic. Normal traffic was not the way it was. It's there's a wreck and all this stuff. Well, I got there about 5 minutes later than what I'd said, but hey, I got there. But you can always, it's like one of those things. Somebody say, well, if you're 15 minutes early, you're late. Get there 15 minutes before you say you're going to, and then you won't be late. Many vows are just plain foolish. I'll never do that again is a foolish vow. It's foolish and unwise to demand such a vow from someone else. When you know somebody's not truthful, and then you make them promise, or something, it's like, well, are you stupid? Why are you asking them? They're not going to keep it. You pretty much know they're not. Okay, Iris, 3 through 5.
Or if a woman makes a vow to the Lord and binds herself by some agreement while in her father's house in her youth, and her father hears her vow and the agreement by which she has bound herself, and her father holds his peace, then all her vows shall stand, and every agreement with which she has bound herself shall stand. But if her father overrules her on the day that he hears, then none of her vows nor her agreements by which she has bound herself shall stand, and the Lord will release her because her father overruled her.
Okay. And this is talking about young women and young men. If they're in their father's house, okay, still under their purview, and they may be older, but still in their father's house, and they have a vow, they say a vow. If the father accepts it, says, okay, you got to do it. If he doesn't comment on it, that's the same thing as accepting it. So you still got to do it. But if he says, hey, no, you can't do that, then she's released, or he is released. They're released from that vow because they really don't have the authority. I know in business, you have to have a key company official sign certain documents. And if they don't have that, they don't have the authority to make that binding commitment. So, just like anything else, if you go again to buy a car, when you write your signature down, that's your commitment that you're going to do that, or for whatever. We do that all the time. If you're going to, not all the time, but when we put new carpet in, usually you have to sign for it unless you have cash and pay for it. But usually we sign on a credit that'll pay out in a year, and we pay on it for a year, get rid of it. So that's an agreement that you said you're going to do, or whatever you're doing.
Don't you think also it's teaching wisdom to your children?
It is.
Not to get out here and make some stupid thing.
Right.
Teach them to weigh their words carefully.
Yeah, that they have to listen just like their father does. What he says goes. And that even goes, as we're getting ready to read in the next one, 6 through 8. Bertha?
If indeed she chase a husband while bound by her vows, or by a rash utterance from her lips by which she bound herself, and her husband hears it, and makes no response to her on the day that he hears, then her vow shall stand, and her agreement by which she bound herself shall stand. But if her husband overrules her on the day that he hears it, he shall make void her vow, which she took and what she uttered with her lips, by which she bound herself, and the Lord will release her.
Okay, so it extends out for the woman. It goes on out to now they're out from under their father, but they're underneath their husband when they get married. And if for some reason they make a silly arrangement and the husband's not there and he comes back, as soon as he hears about it, he says, no, I wouldn't do that. We're not doing that. And here again, people take advantage of people today because they don't understand certain situations. And they you know, a lot of times what they do, they'll get people into hawk and credit and all that, and they don't really know that they're getting, 25% interest or some crazy number. But here, the man is supposed to take over because he is covering his wife. Again, that's part of God's plan, that he's protecting her, and he's the one that's to make the exception. But it goes on in 9, says, also any vow of a widow or a divorced woman by which she has bound herself shall stand against her. So it goes into a place that once she's on her own, if she doesn't remarry, then she's on her own. I mean, whatever vow she makes, whatever promise she makes, she has no covering or no head over her. So God is her head directly, and she's bound by what her vows are. If she vowed in her husband's house or bound herself by an agreement with an oath, and her husband heard it and made no response to her and did not overrule her, then all her vows shall stand, and every agreement by which she bound herself shall stand. But if her husband truly made them void on the day he heard them, then whatever proceeded from her lips concerning her vows or concerning the agreement binding her, it shall not stand. Her husband has made them void, and the Lord will release her. Every vow and every binding oath to afflict her soul, her husband may confirm it, or her husband may make it void. Now, if her husband makes no response whatever to her from day to day, then he confirms all her vows or all the agreements that bind her. He confirms them because he made no response to her on the day that he heard them. But he does make them void after he has heard them, then he shall bear her guilt. These are the statutes which the Lord commanded Moses between a man and his wife, between a father and his daughter, and her youth in her father's house. So there are certain things that they do. If a woman made a vow with a husband and then she became out on her own, a widow, she's still under that vow because that's under hers now if her husband took it. If her husband said no, then she's out from under that vow. But if he says yes or does not say anything, then basically he's saying yes, she has to do it, but he's going to bear the brunt of it because he is over her.
That makes him the responsible.
He's responsible for that vow because he didn't speak up. Okay? That's what that's saying. He shall bear her iniquity means he will suffer for the broken vow as though it was his. Here again, this is just an outworking of the principle of headship. When God declares someone to be in a position of rightful authority and others are expected to submit to that authority, the head also is accountable before God for the results. God never grants authority without accountability. When this is understood, it makes submission much easier. So we have to be careful when we go into that, any kind of vow like that. Because here again, it weighs on us today. It's not so much sacrifices and things, but it weighs on our opinion on us, on how we stand. Now we're going to chapter 31. We kind of finished all those, and now Moses is going to tell them.
How many chapters is there altogether?
I don't know. I have to look. There's a couple more, so we got at least another week or two, I think. These were just so short, not much short. Just wasn't a whole lot of commentary. All the commentaries are in said basically the same thing. Usually there's a lot of difference.
It's a
Kind of
repeat.
get it, yeah.
Did
The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Take vengeance on the Midianites for the children of Israel. Afterwards ye shall be gathered to your people. This is God telling Moses, okay, take vengeance on the Midianites. Who are the Midianites? They were the descendants of Abraham and his handmaiden Keturah. Okay, in his old days, he had a handmaiden after Sarah died, Keturah, and she had children, and those children are the Midianites, what they call the Midianites. Okay, they were a nomadic tribe at that time, or people, and they were associated with the Moabites in the land of Moab. Now, Moab, we remember, is Esau. Okay, Esau's descendants from Jacob. Jacob and Esau. Joseph came from them. So the Midianites, he didn't tell them to go after the Moabites. Now, why? Okay, they're intermixed. The Midianites were the ones where we read just a couple chapters ago. That king was the one that wanted to have attacked Israel. And he called Balaam.
Take over their
yeah,
land, right?
to try to wipe them out, to get them out of here. Yeah. So Balaam is going to be involved here in a little bit. So he's saying, and then Balaam also told Balak, okay, then go have your women go intersperse with the men and have them come across, and maybe they can yield them, get them to sacrifice to your idols, and thus the God will leave them. Well, that's when the plague broke out, remember? So this is a retribution that's going to be handed out for them. So take vengeance, says we are generally uncomfortable with the idea of vengeance because it doesn't seem consistent with God's love. Yet in the right context, vengeance is something good that God is interested in. The scriptures repeatedly speak of the vengeance of God as a positive thing. What it is, it's wiping out evil. Okay? In this particular circumstance, Israel was in a unique place with a special call to be an instrument of God's vengeance. This is something no person should take upon themselves, knowing that ancient Israel had this unique place in God's plan. A lot of people try to do that today. They say, well, God told me to take vengeance on it. I don't think so. God, God's going to, you leave that to God. He's going to take care of it.
Blame him. But not everything came from him.
Then the last part of that scripture says, afterward ye shall be gathered. This basically means that Moses is going to die after that. He's going to be gathered to his people. Okay? Or his ancestors. Okay, 3 through 5, Brother Emerson.
So Moses spoke to the people, saying, arm some of yourselves for the war, and let them go against the Midianites to take vengeance for the Lord on Midian. 1,000 from each tribe of all the tribes of Israel you shall send to war. And there were recruits from the divisions of Israel, 1,000 from each tribe, 12,000 armed for war.
So they got ready for war. God said, you don't have to have everybody. They had 600 plus thousand, but they didn't need everybody. Just send 1,000 for each one. And this is kind of each tribe can't get upset. Okay? They all come together as one big unit and they go out. So we don't know a whole lot about this battle. It does not tell us right here and in the next few chapters what it's going to be or who's going to lead them or anything. We just have to kind of guess at some of it. 6 through 11, Iris.
Then Moses sent them to the war, 1,000 from each tribe. He sent them to the war with Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the priest, with the holy articles and the signal trumpets in his hand. And they warred
Fought
against the Midianites just as the Lord commanded Moses, and they killed all the males. They killed the kings of Midian with the rest of those who were killed. Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, the 5 kings of Midian. Balaam, the son of Beor, they also killed with the sword. And the children of Israel took the women of Midian captive with their little ones, and took as spoil all their cattle, all their flocks, and all their goods. They also burned with fire all the cities where they dwelt, and all their forts. And they took all the spoil and all the booty of man and beast.
Okay. So they sent them out. Phineas went out. He was the son of Eleazar. Every time they went to war, one of the Levites went with them. And here, sometimes they would take the ark. Later on in David's time and Solomon and some of those, they would take some of the other articles of the tabernacle with them, the Ark of the Covenant and some things. Here, it says the holy articles and the signal trumps. Well, the way it's written in the Hebrew, it may be they took the holy articles, pause, the signal trumps. So the trumpets. That way they can say when to go and when to stop and all these things. So the silver trumpets that they made, remember back then, and the shofars that they had, that would sound the alarms of when to go and when to stop and when to go this way and when to go that way. So Phineas, Eleazar's son, the high priest's son, went with them. We don't see anybody else, but it did say 1,000 from each group, and usually the heads of the tribes go. So we're assuming Joshua went, Caleb went, all the different heads of their tribes. And since Joshua was God's leader in lieu of Moses, we assume Joshua was the leader of this group as they went forward and set forth how God told him how they were going to wipe these out. So they put all the males to death, okay? Young and old. Seems harsh, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But back then, just like it is today in some of them, they are raising their young ones up in some of the societies just like they are, to hate the Jews, to hate certain people. And it's like if one of them killed their father, then they're going to get vengeance upon them. Okay? So God had it in his plans that there was no good going to come of any of them. He's basically going to wipe them off. But they kept the women. That was a mistake that they made. Okay, we'll see that here in the next one. 12 through 20, you want to read that for us?
Then they brought the captives and the booty and the spoil of Moses to Eleazar and the priest and to the congregation of the children of Israel to the camp in the plains of Moab by Jordan, across from Jericho. And Moses and Eleazar the priest and all the leaders of the congregation went to meet them outside the camp. But Moses was angry with the officers of the army, with the captains over thousands and captains over hundreds who had come from the battle. And Moses said to them, have you kept all the women alive? Look, these women caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to trespass against the Lord, and indicate pure. And there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman who has known a man intimately. But keep alive for yourself all the young girls who have not known the man entered. And as for you, remain outside the camp 7 days. Whoever has killed any person, and whoever has touched any slain, purify himself and your captives on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day purify every garment, everything made of leather, and everything woven of goat's hair, and everything made of wood.
Okay. So in this fighting, we can't forget this, even all the way down through the fighting that they had with David. Whenever they would come back into the camp, they couldn't enter the camp because they would defile it. So they had to cleanse themselves. Okay, they had to wait 7 days and cleanse themselves, go through this cleansing process, go through the water. They had to wash their clothes, they had to wash, everything off, because they come into death. They were killing people, and they were coming into dead people, dead bodies. You got to go back to the rules, what God said about dead bodies. That's what they said. You can't touch them. If you do, you have to do these things. So that's what they did. But he was mad because they brought the very women that led them astray and caused the outbreak, the plague. So it's kind of like, are you stupid? These are some things that they did. So he put them to death if they were of age, if they know the man. So they killed all the little ones that was there, but everything else they had that they got out of that, the booty they called it, or the goods, their part of it, they had to wash it, they had to clean it. Any of the goat's hairs, the tents, all these things that they took, okay, they had to cleanse it. (21 through 24, down at the bottom of page 4, says, Then Eleazar the priest said to the men of war who had gone to the battle, This is the ordinance of the law which the Lord commanded Moses. Only the gold, the silver, the bronze, the iron, the tin, and the lead, everything that can endure the fire, you shall put through the fire, and it shall be clean, and it shall be purified with the water of purification. But all that cannot endure the fire, you shall put through water. You shall wash your clothes on the 7th day and be clean, and afterwards you may come into the camp. So here he's telling them what to do. All the stuff you've got, the jewels, all that stuff, you could pass those through the fire. Because stones and things like that, they would heat up, but it wouldn't, burn them. The gold and all that stuff, it'd burn all that off. But the goats, the skins, the tents, and all the wood and whatever they brought forth, wouldn't. They'd have to purify it with the water. So that's what they did. They purified it the best way they could. God told them how to do it. Whenever you purify any metal, you heat it up so it melts in the dross, so the unclean stuff comes to the top, and you scoop it off, and then it's pure metal. Okay? Whatever it be, if it's gold or silver or all that, different ones that they said.
They still do that.
They still do that today. That's right. When God wants us to wash us clean, he not only uses the waters of baptism today, but also the ministry of the Word, as described in Ephesians 5:26. Says that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the Word. So we can get cleansed today. The baptism is our outward knowledge of it, but then we also we get cleansed when we hear the Word. Okay? Now the Lord, on 25, now the Lord spoke to Moses, and this is another long one, so I'll read it, saying, Count up the plunder that was taken of man and beast, you and Eleazar the priest, and the chief fathers of the congregation, and divide the plunder into 2 parts, between those who took part in the war, who went out to the battle, and then all the congregation. Levy a tribute for the Lord on the men of war who went out to battle, 1 of every 500 of the persons. The cattle, the donkeys, the sheep, take it from their half and give it to Eleazar the priest as a heave offering to the Lord. And from the children of Israel's half, you shall take 1 of every 50, drawn from the persons, the cattle, the donkeys, the sheep, from all the livestock and give them to the Levites who keep charge of the tabernacle of the Lord. So Moses and Eleazar the priest did as the Lord commanded Moses. The booty remaining from the plunder which the men of war had taken was 675,000 sheep, 72,000 cattle, 61,000 donkeys, 32,000 persons in all, of women who had not known a man intimately. And the half of the portion for those who had gone out to war was in number 337,500 sheep. The Lord's tribute of the sheep was 675. The cattle were 36,000, of which the Lord's tribute was 72. The donkeys were 30,500, of which the Lord's tribute was 61. The persons were 16,000, of which the Lord's tribute was 32 persons. So Moses gave the tribute, which was the Lord's heave offering, to Eleazar the priest, as the Lord commanded Moses, and from the children of Israel's half, which Moses separated from the men who fought. Now the half belonging to the congregation was 337,500 sheep, 36,000 cattle, 30,500 donkeys, and 16,000 persons. And from the children of Israel's half, Moses took one of every 50, drawn from man and beast, and gave them to the Levites who kept charge of the tabernacle of the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moses. Then the officers who were over the thousands of the army, the captains of thousands and captains of hundreds, came near to Moses, and they said to Moses, "Your servants have taken account of the men of war who are under our command, and not a man of us is missing." They didn't lose anybody in this war, okay? "Therefore we have brought an offering for the Lord, that every man found of ornaments of gold, armlets and bracelets and signet rings and earrings and necklaces, to make atonement for ourselves before the Lord." So Moses and Eleazar the priest received the gold from them, all the fashioned ornaments, and all the gold of the offering that they offered to the Lord, from the captives of the thousands and the captives of the captains of hundreds, was 16,750 shekels. The men of war had taken spoil, every man for himself. Moses and Eleazar the priest received the gold from the captains of the thousands and of the hundreds, and brought it to the tabernacle of meeting as a memorial for the children of Israel before the Lord. Okay? So what this basically means is the 12,000 that went out to fight, whatever they brought back, they brought out back all the people. Moses cut them in half as far as he split how many people came. They had 600-some thousand people that came back. Half of them went to the army, half of them went to the rest of the 6 million people, or 2 million people that they had left. Okay, and they divvied it up probably by tribe. Of those groups, certain percentages went to the Levites to help them because they didn't go to war. Okay, so it was more on the congregation. Okay, they had for every 500 persons they got, they had to give up one. Now that would be the other guys. For every 50 that the soldiers had, no, it's 500 for the soldiers, they gave up one. For every 50 of the congregation, they gave up one. So that'd be more people coming from the congregations than from the, because the guys in the army, they took a battle. They went to the battle and they did the war, okay? They're the ones that fought it. So they're getting a reward. They're not only getting a reward of what they found as they go through that, pick up all these jewels and stuff, but they also got some reward of people. Now these were mainly the women, the small girls and stuff. They became their slaves, or they could sell them, or they could do whatever they want to with them. They were theirs to do whatever. Part of them went to the Levites to help serve in the Levites. Some of them went to the people, the rest of them went to the people. So that's how they grew their number. And that's how typically the armies of that time they did. Because if they wiped out all the men, they'd have to marry the women. I mean, the women would have to marry their people if they come, or become slaves, which most of them did. So So that's the way they did. And because nobody was lost, the Army realized this, the military, they gave an extra offering to the Lord because of that. They gave what they had of them, they gave a percentage of that to the Lord. Yeah, for giving them the favor that they had. So,
Yeah. Wow.
questions, comments?
Very good.
Very good.
All right. Well, we'll meet again next week.
And we've